Hey guys, so here you can see the shepherd's crook of Orion on that sheaf wave the dying phoenix will use in the west to gather his triangular shaped pyre that his solar successor in the east will use for a nest. Notice between them a scrappy looking dog, you can call him Sirius, at the end of five somethings, and a cross in which Raven finally gets the serpent. Perhaps that's the five a how from precession to precession. You might look up Michigan mining. They're not sure exactly how many thousands of years it goes back, but suffice to mention that Minoan writing was discovered here in North America before it was discovered in Crete. Conflagration, flood, and exodus have happened many times in the past. Enki took American wisdom from the root to Samaria. Thoth took American wisdom from the root to Egypt. Ancient stones show they abandoned this place in time to save their upper class from coming disaster. Millionaires of this century are also attempting to do the intelligent thing. Some looked at future economic projections and didn't wish to stay in a country about to be decimated. Others pondered the history of demagoguery and bipolar economics, concluding we're about to meet Robespierre. Only in this incarnation, he's a black Cuban American female who keeps a really long list of targets. I don't mind so much politicians lying about how humanity overheated the earth. It's just an exaggeration, but that is how politicians do their part. I do mind sociopaths. Moses, Mordecai, Levi, Marx came from a long line of rabbis. His mom converted Christian and had him baptized when he was 6, and then just after high school, he fell in with the Satanists, not unlike the ones who for 120 years have been ushering you into the New World Order. You can read H.G. Wells advocating the NWO, or you can read the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, but we've been on a glide path to hell, now set to ignite with a market crash, the destruction of America, and a replacement of church and state by the order's cult of personality run out of Hollywood. The news media provide us hints from time to time that all is not well on a planet one great solar flare from Armageddon. I wonder how the scientists in the study figured these are places to be when the fall comes again. I think I've mentioned from time to time that space rocks are headed our way, bunches of them. Something to make the great meteor storm of 1833 look like a July picnic with sparklers for the kids. Something that will blanket the world in a red cloud of ash and dust. Pretty sure I've mentioned the Pacific Ring of fire going off spectacularly, beginning in the north and zipping its way south. If you look at the magnitude 8+ quakes over the past 120 years, you can see all the action is on the Pacific Ring of Fire, and especially concentrated on the northeast corner of the Pacific Ocean. I'm told that in 2 pole shifts, southwest Alaska could end up as the new South Pole. But I can't tell you how long it might take for that second pole shift to put it there. The first shift has been hard enough to find. If we assume the ancients left us a message with their placement of great monuments around the planet, I would propose that it has to do with why the majority of great civilizations fall within one narrow band across the globe. Treat the line of ancient monuments as Earth's usual equator. Assume that the area within 15 degrees north and south of that line is what Zecharia Sitchin called the zone of Anu, covering the temperate zone, basically between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. And then we have an explanation as to why great civilizations tend to spring up there. Any place beyond that zone will sooner or later become deathly cold. which is a big factor that becomes more important when we consider the 8 to 10 degree drop in temperature that comes along at the end of every fifth precession, the one ending now. We've talked a lot about Mali and Vanuatu being one of the planet's axes, our pillars of the Earth, as it were. But it could be that there's a second pole shift, returning our survivors to another equilibrium, one that leaves this country out in the cold, just as we find it unfavorably treated in the flood and the fire of next year. If you have a scholarly bent, I would recommend searching out some of the mysteries to Exodus 15 for this generation. The horse and rider dumped was the age of Orion and Taurus, the Lamed and the Aleph. The world had gone from the age of Taurus to the age of Aries, and the sacrifices had changed. When Jesus came, we went from Aries to Pisces, and we had a new pantheon of fishers of men. Now we have the change from Pisces to Aquarius. Now huge chunks of humanity will be the sacrifice before a few of you reach the new golden age. You can see the central banks did to the United Socialist States of America with inflation the same thing they perpetrated in Germany in the name of war reparations. Theft by another name feels just as bad. In 1913, we had a dollar that was worth something. International debt was below $3 billion. Today, how long does it take to spend that? A week in Iraq or something? Today, we have a dollar worth less than a 1913 penny. We have a bankrupt economy run by printing press. The job of your elected official is to write hot checks. So our national debt could total $29 trillion before I end this video. A day of reckoning is coming when you won't be able to afford food for your family, and it's coming quickly. Those with the resources will acquire everything on the monopoly board. It will be a repeat of Genesis 47. We will lose our freedom, our children, our lands, and our property. Citizen scientist Rob Stammes has been watching abnormal events relating solar flares to Earth magnetism to what's happening on your seismograph. So Mary Greeley, take note. The ancients told us next spring would bring the X-class solar flare that freaks out the planet, sort of like the first scene in the movie 2012. The suspicious thing is that the world anticipates the demise of the United States. So the meekest president yet will preside briefly over a time in which the karma of his people comes due for payment. Don't be surprised by the hostility of Russia and China. Don't be surprised by the bombs they toss around. Don't be surprised as the Middle East heats up as the geologic and economic fulcrum to get to before the first pole shift looms. They don't want you worried about the next few years, so they'll discuss cycles of history in no way connected to our suddenly overlapping cycles, as apocalypse piles upon disaster, piles upon catastrophe. So listen, if you haven't considered anything I've ever told you up until now, just know we have reached the end of a precession and the end of a fifth precession, which is even worse. So we shall now have the crescendo of global warming followed directly by ice age by 2040. Right now, unless you have a pass to the government underground, which I no longer do, you and I need to conceive of a personal and a community mountain shelter to survive what is coming. A cavern that goes up into a mountain would be highly useful. If I could make an alternate suggestion, consider taking a long trip before next spring. By Stargate, UFO, rocket to Mars or the moon, airplane, boat, train, you need to prepare to go. Our ancestors wove reed boats to get out of here in time. The continental U.S. is expected to go down the tubes. Watch for where our military is headed. Not that a war zone is a particularly nice place to be, but it might give you a clue as to where the powers that be think our planet has a future. In the meantime, also consider God's kingdom, how our need to erect it has arrived, and instead of learning how to share and care, we've been busy putting our trust in a defunct currency, a corrupt government, and military operations irritating the entire rest of humanity. It's high time we did something different. Shema bless you and keep you. Take care.